Bruce and I go back a long way. He's been at Palisades for many years and got there shortly after I got to Jersey City Medical Center. And here's a lesson learned, okay? Bruce is a very challenging and difficult competitor. We were competitive, okay? And somehow he had a way of ferreting out the best doctors we had and trying to steal them, right? Yeah. But Bruce and I, as you will see, I hope tonight, are also very, very good friends. And while he was trying to destroy what I was building, we would go out to lunch once every other month, and we would be buddies. And I think we still are. And the thing is that I think you're going to find out in your careers that having trying to find the right word, dual relationship with good people, competitor and friend, pays off. And in fact, what pays off bigger in the long run, even as competitors, is the friendship side. Because if you're competitors and friends, one, you have someone to talk to when you screw up and the board's beating you up, right? How many times do we go through that? And second, even though you're competitors, when you're in the same county, you have the same politicians, the same this, and you find when it's appropriate to call a timeout, right? And work together. And you know, I'm out of Jersey City for a long time now, and he's still competing, and we're still friends. So thanks.
That was a good and very nice introduction for sure. It's funny, I remember one of the first times that I met Jonathan, and it was an issue over ambulance services and EMS in the county, which Jonathan dominated and did his best to make sure that his ambulance service bypassed my hospital at every opportunity. So he was in a very strong position. I wasn't in such a strong position.
We own the ambulances.
Yeah, that's true. And but we did come together because the bottom line was that we were all in it for the community. And I'm going to talk about that in terms of the profit and nonprofit issues, and bless you, regarding healthcare and the way things are happening now, because the hospital environment for sure and the physician environment is moving at such a rapid pace now. You almost can't keep up. All the changes the past 4 years with the Affordable Care Act has really prompted a lot of these consolidations to occur, the integration of physicians amongst themselves and with hospitals. And it's really such a very interesting and wonderful environment now. As scary as the environment is, I have this dual view of it. One, I'm more or less at the tail end of my career, and thankful in a way that I don't have to deal with these crazy challenges that are ahead. And I want, prompt me if I forget to talk about careers and healthcare leadership, if I forget to talk about that. Because there's so much going on in the future, so many wonderful things that can happen in terms of where healthcare is going and taking care of it.
I meant to say this initially. Last week, Jeff Kraft was open to questions, but Jeff is Jeff. So once he got going, he got going. And so the ground rules are, if you have a question, just jump right in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise Bruce will go, he can go for 3 hours.
Yeah, but I won't. The funny thing is, Jonathan has asked me to do this on occasion. I've never had the pleasure of being here, but it's usually in the middle of Newark at Rutgers Business School. This, at least, the environment here is very different. and the class size is much larger. I was actually ill prepared in terms of copies of some articles that I made, but hopefully you guys can share it. But in any event, what I was saying is that, you know, the future has so many great opportunities and how quickly everything is changing. I'm almost envious of what you guys are going to have ahead of you. But on the other hand, I'm also like, okay, great. You know, I've kind of, it's not that I've kind of had it, but, you know, it's really time for a whole new vision and a whole new look ahead to deal with these challenges. And before I get going, I just, you know, a little bit about me. My favorite subject. So I am a hospital administrator. I'm the CEO of a hospital in Hudson County, New Jersey. Literally, if anyone lives on the Upper West Side, does anybody live on the Upper West Side? Great. So if you're on like in the 80s, right at the Riverside Drive, and you look across the river, you'll see some white low-lying buildings, and at night the lights flashing at you.
Sticking into the water.
That's only the parking lot. That's where I work. All right, so I'm literally right on the Hudson River. And if you want to talk about Hurricane Sandy a little later, I'll talk to you about that, because I have a very unique perspective. Probably no one has the experience I have of literally evacuating a hospital twice for Hurricane Irene and Hurricane Sandy, which is actually what happened. Literally evacuated the hospitals, and that was a gut-wrenching, diarrhea-causing event for sure. In any event, next year will mark 30 years that I've been a hospital CEO. I started out when I was 16 years old, working in a hospital in Newark, Beth Israel. And, you know, I was much like everybody else, didn't know what they wanted to do. And the CEO of that hospital, who turned 90 this year, his name's Lester Bornstein, who was a pillar of the community, used to make rounds all the time. And he visited me where I was doing literature searches for the interns and residents in the medical library in the evening. And I said, you know, I want to be like this guy. And to this day, I actually go out to lunch with Lester Bornstein and very much admire and respect him. If I have a picture of him on my phone, I would put it right up on the screen, because he was so instrumental in my life. And
the other thing that Bruce does, which most CEOs stop doing, you still make grants.
Well, every day is for me, the best part of the day. So in any event, so I've been in hospitals almost my whole life, and always wanted to be a hospital CEO at the age of 32, which now gives it away. I was in a unique position. I had been working as a vice president of a small hospital in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the CEO and I were not getting along at all. In fact, I thought I was going to get fired. I had just graduated law school in December, was going to sit for the bar in February, had been offered a job in a law firm in Bridgeport. And 2 weeks after I took the bar exam, the CEO gets fired. So the board asked me to take over in the interim. So at age 32 at that point in time, I took over in the interim. He got fired on Friday. The board chairman called me on about 1, 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And Monday morning, I literally moved into his office and was sitting at his desk. And called a meeting of the department directors. I said, there's a new sheriff in town. These are the next 3 things we're going to be doing, and want your support. And I wound up being there for 7 years in that position, turning around the hospital, so to speak. So it worked out very well. And then it was time for me to move on. This job became available in New Jersey. And the one thing I swore I would never do was move back to New Jersey, but that's what happened.
Wasn't there a merger that caused?
No, well, yeah, more or less, yeah.
So even back then, mergers
Yeah, but it was we'll bring that up. So, in any event, so what happened at that point in time, I became available at Palisades Medical Center. So now I just want to tell you a little bit about Palisades and kind of create the picture, and then talk about some things that we're doing now. And then I also want to say, as Jonathan said, please keep this very informal, no PowerPoints. If I had PowerPoints, I'd probably do a better job at the presentation than I'm doing now. But if you ask me questions, that'd be the best thing, all right? So this job became available at Palisades. Palisades is and was a 202-bed acute care hospital, 245-bed nursing home at that time. The hospital had 8 CEOs in 10 years when I got there, and was on the verge of bankruptcy, being taken over by the state. Was the weakest hospital from a clinical and a financial perspective in the area, and had, if there's any accountants in the room, a material weakness opinion, which meant that there were no systems of internal control in the organization. So money was coming in, going out, no one knew what was going on. And so the more I interviewed there, the more excited I got about the opportunity to turn a place around and really make a mark for myself. When I went in there and the board decided that they wanted me to be their CEO, I actually took a cut and pay, small cut and pay, but I took a big incentive plan, which I insisted on. And the most important thing I insisted on was a big severance cut. So I wanted them to think very hard if they wanted to fire me. And so that was, to me, what was important, because I needed the board. So when I got there, you know, as much research as you do for any job, you never really know what it's like. And it's always so much different when you're on the inside than when you're on the outside. You see the dysfunction of an organization, poor quality of care by the medical staff, doctors taking patients to the ORs without registering them. I mean, I can tell you stories upon stories about stories. And in any event, I was faced with political issues involving the community that viewed the hospital, had a very negative image of the hospital, a medical staff that felt that they could run amok and control the place and do whatever they wanted, and a board that was dysfunctional. It had 60 members on the board. So within the first year, the first thing that I did was go to the board and say, we need to reorganize and refocus where the board looks at how they look at this. To me, at least at the hospital and the local level, and almost in the healthcare delivery system, it's really the community board that is the underpinning of what goes on in a hospital. And that's where I decided to focus my efforts. And so I reorganized the board that had, you know, 5, 6, 7, 10 meetings a month talking about what color paint to put on the walls. I reduced the board from 60 members to 20 members. I pissed off the real world by taking 40 people and putting on some advisory capacity where they really had limited to no input. It wasn't a meaningful role, although I tried to make it meaningful. And so, you know, it impacted some philanthropy money. It impacted my image, if you will, in the community, and presented a host of other issues. But to me, I felt that the board had to focus on one thing, and that was on patient care. And believe it or not, they had human resources committee, mental health committee, they had the buildings committee, facilities committee, you name it. They did not have one committee or one discussion at any board meeting I was on about patient care. And so I decided to reorganize the board into 4 4 committees, essentially, which was a strategic planning committee, a finance committee, their professional committee, and an executive compensation committee. Because I felt that if their board was going to support their CEO, they needed to work to establish specific goals and objectives and to evaluate the CEO on these goals and objectives. So the bottom line, here it is, 21 years later, and I'm still there, and I'm still feeling very challenged by what's there. Whether you like or support the federal legislation that has revamped our healthcare system, it really is causing us to focus on all the things that are right. So, what's right? Well, the first thing that's right is that, for me, my whole life has been focused on taking care of people who are sick. So they come to the hospital because they're sick. Well, the role of the hospital is not going to be just that anymore, because we're going to be responsible and incentivized to take care of the entire health of the population. So that is what a hospital is going to be responsible for. Now, it's still going to be the center of the healthcare delivery system, but where we're all moving is really to take care of the health of the community and the population that we serve. So all of the decisions that we are making as an organization, and that I would say that the healthcare delivery system is making, is to move towards that. So hospitals, I mean, you know, the days of a physician having their own practice, putting out a shingle, are over. It's done. So I forgot what the statistic is, but it's over 60% of all physicians in this country now either work for a hospital or an insurance company. The remaining 40% are doing something else or are in private practice. But that number is like just going up every single day. So hospitals are recruiting new physicians coming out of practice, and they're hiring physician groups, employing them, and integrating them through best practice, evidence-based medicine, all of that, into the hospital, and making sure that once their patients are in the hospital and then out of the hospital, to make sure that their health is being cared for outside the hospital. So you're going to hear over the course of time, and anybody who's in the business will know, there's a lot of people in this room that are in the hospital business, right? So you know that we're all moving towards the accountable care organizations, and that whole concept of taking care of the patient, navigating them through the healthcare delivery system, and treating them outside the hospital, which is the most expensive place, and then ultimately sharing in that savings with the physicians and the hospitals all together through the accountable care organizations. So, you know, some of the decisions that I've had to make is hiring physicians and physician groups. So this is something that hospitals are all doing now, and I don't know any one hospital that is successful in doing this from a financial point of view. So, you know, when I look back sometimes at decisions that I've made, the reasons why, hiring physician practices, for me, it's costing my organization about $4 or $5 million a year on a $160 million budget. That's a huge loss to take. And why are we losing money? Basically because if you're over the age of 50 and you practice medicine, you practice it very differently than when you're coming out of your residency at the age of 30. And what you've learned in the way that you practice. My daughter is graduating her residency program, 5th year surgical resident up at St. Luke's Roosevelt. Does anyone work there? So I love sitting with her and my son-in-law talking about, what they're learning in healthcare, and it's just, everything is prescribed. They've come to grow up with that and to expect that, but you may not be that way, and other physicians are not. So there's really a dichotomy between how physicians are practicing, what the costs and what the costs are involved. So the whole concept of moving towards population health is also causing industry consolidation. And so I want to talk about that for a second also. I made some notes and I copied 2 articles, but I didn't realize the class was going to be this size. So at some point, we're going to share that. The other issue that I just wanted to briefly talk about is, before I talk about that, so the Wall Street Journal yesterday had an article, an editorial that was written by a physician at Johns Hopkins. And he was talking about the financial industry and the collapse of the financial industry and the too big to fail concept, right? And so the healthcare industry is consolidating rapidly. If you just take a look at New York City today, compared to New York City 3 years ago, it's a whole new world. Even last year or the year before, the merger of the continuum hospitals, which was Beth Israel, St. Luke's, Roosevelt. I don't know if Litch was involved. I don't think Litch was part of continuum, but no, right.
They were already owned by Edison.
Yeah, I know. So the continuum into Mount Sinai really just took them over and wiped out everybody there. But that whole Are you there?
No, I'm the other one.
Yeah, I'm there. I've watched the carnage. Yes, indeed.
And New York Presbyterian, which I don't know what you do there, but we can talk about that. New York Presbyterian was a little late coming to the game in terms of, if you will, acquiring community hospitals and bringing them in. But how New York Presby has grown. But I don't think that there's an independent hospital left in New York.
Jeff Pratt was here last week in North Shore.
Oh, yeah.
20 hospitals.
Yeah, so North Shore LIJ just took over Northern Westchester, Joel Seligman's place, and Phelps, I think, right, and created all of that. And it's just really creating these monster organizations. And I believe healthcare, like politics, they say is a local, it's your local hospital. But
I'm glad you said that word monster, because to me, this is like inventing derivatives. Things are getting built so big, but it's where is the race to?
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, I think, there's lots of reasons why you have to do it. And so about 2 weeks ago, we announced that we're going to be merging with Hackensack. So any people from New Jersey in here? Good. Northern New Jersey? Northern New Jersey?
Hackensack?
No. So in New Jersey, almost every hospital has merged with one another. Jonathan's place, which was the largest hospital in the county, merged within the Barnabas system in the past year. In my county, I'll tell you, by the way, I mentioned how I came to Palisades and the place was on the verge of bankruptcy. Every hospital in my county either closed or filed for bankruptcy. Did Jersey City, or was closed?
Well, before I got there, it was
Yeah. So, and it was in trouble when it took on new debt after Jonathan built this brand new hospital, which nobody else could do, but we did it. But in any event, every hospital was either bankrupt or closed. Today there are 3 hospitals that that are for-profit and operating with a model called out-of-network. I don't know if you guys know that. Right? So it means that they don't even have an admitting office. They have an ER. So they just make sure every patient, whether you're ready to deliver a baby or whatever, you're coming through the ER, and the insurance companies are required to pay the out-of-network payments. And so the hospital in Bayonne and Jersey City was all over the Wall Street Journal and the national news for having the highest charges of any hospital in the entire country. So in any event, we were the only one that didn't file for bankruptcy or for state subsidies at all, but we did it on our own. But with the need to take care of the population, with the need to have the full range of services, with the whole way the insurance company is going now, with at-risk contracts and developing narrow networks, the local community hospitals can't survive. And so part of what I wanted to talk about was the process of what we went through from an internal and political point of view to select a partner, and then ultimately the application for us to merge is on file in the state of New Jersey.
Bruce has done so much that we forget some of the important things, but I want to bring something up.
Okay.
Jersey City Medical Center, we were a supplement. We had to go to Trenton and beg for money, or ATM. The other hospitals in Hudson County, everyone had a bad veterans. And every other hospital, except I guess Bayonne, which went into bankruptcy first on its own, depended on the state for survival. You made a decision, Bruce, very early on, right? To suffer the pain of going it alone, rather than asking the state for extra money. Not money that everyone got at school, but we're in trouble, we need money. And every other hospital in the county did that and got it, but you didn't. Why did you do that?
Because I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do when they have their hands in my pocket, basically. And so I figured we're going to do it on our own, and subsidies come, subsidies go. And if you're going to take a subsidy and spend it, and it's not there next year, you're really in trouble. And so my view all along was, if we can't do it ourselves, then we should either link up or not do it. Part of our problem is that we're a heavily unionized hospital. We're wall-to-wall unionized. Our nurses, they probably still are the highest paid in the state of New Jersey. But our nurse staffing ratios are the worst in the state. So, we're paying everybody a lot of money, but we can't afford to pay. So our nurse staffing ratios, which should be about 1 to 5, 1 to 6 on the med-surg unit, are close to 1 to 9, 1 to 10. And I think that's impacted our patient satisfaction scores and all of that sort of stuff. And it really represents a challenge for us, for sure.
The point I want to make is every other hospital was either taken over by the system or went into bankruptcy and was scooped up by this for-profit. The reason Palisades had an option of who they were the supplement. Hackensack said this will add value if their finances are based on the variable state subsidy. It wouldn't have been so easy.
No, that's correct. That's correct. I had also been preparing for what I saw coming down the road. I don't think anyone could have predicted the rapid change. In the 1960s, the government passed Medicare and Medicaid, I think in 1966 and 67. And so everybody was coming on the doors of the hospitals. Now, with this new law, it's very different because the incentive is really to work with the physicians to have your incentives aligned, if you will, with the medical community, the hospital community, and the subacute and other providers that are out in the community as well, and really to align everybody's incentives, which is really very key. And so, again, for me, although I kind of saw all of this coming down the pike, I didn't realize how quickly it would be happening. There's also a concern that you have about being left out. So, you know, when these monopolies, if you will, conglomerates begin to develop and large systems begin to develop, the FTC begins to do an analysis. And when that happens, you have the possibility of being cut out. There's an article, this Wall Street Journal article that I was referring to, and talks about what happened in Boston, and talks about what happened in California with the for-profit company Prime, and how hospitals that needed to be taken over, if you will, couldn't be because the network was becoming too large and they were dominant, monopolizing the market. And so the judges stepped in and said no, even at the risk of a hospital closing. All of this is undergoing.
The irony, though, is New York, where Dole signs an agreement, that letter of intent with North Shore on the White Plains, as an example.
Yeah.
Vada fever,
Yes.
and 2 months later they merge.
Yeah.
And New York is an anomaly. The things are moving so fast without judicial intervention.
New York is always like the last state to do something, you know, because of the heavy regulations, and they're moving much more quickly than a bunch of other states. Much more quickly than New Jersey because of the regulatory process in New Jersey, as an example. But
I think that North Shore got so big so fast that the state couldn't say no to the others in terms of the competition had gone from hospitals to systems to mega systems.
right, but you see, North Shore is a very well integrated system. So when they take over a hospital, they really bring their systems in place that have worked well in other hospitals. And so, you know, if you have the North Shore banner, you know that that brand in one place will be the same as the next to a certain extent. And they've really done a very good job of that. There's not too many other hospitals or systems that have done it. So anyway, where was I? Okay. So let me tell you about the process.
Not being left out.
Yeah. So you know, the other thing is you don't want to be left out. To me, on a personal level, I always wanted to fight the fight and to kind of do it my way. But I knew that what's best for the organization was that we integrate more with a hospital such as Hackensack. And actually, what has happened since our discussion with Hackensack announced that they're going to be merging with the Meridian system, which is a 10-hospital system, or 7 or 8 hospital system in southern New Jersey. Hackensack has 2 other hospitals in northern New Jersey as well, and now Palisades. And so we're now going to be part of a system that goes completely across the state. So as these narrow insurance networks develop, as we gain access to capital, which is key, these systems are going to have the strength to be able to bring these services to the local community, which for me is big. So
Jeff Pratt said that if they're not a hospital system anymore, they're an insurance company.
yes,
But I think some of them become banks.
Yeah.
Because they have billions of dollars. I mean, some of them have hundreds of millions of dollars in reserves, right?
well, I'll tell you, we close our year in it's January to December year.
You're at $50.
No, but I have a conference call with the rating agencies coming up next month. I know that if I had a conversation and they said, what are your plans? And we said, we're going to fight alone. We would be downgraded to junk bond status. No matter how good our performance was, no matter how much growth we had, we would be downgraded. We would never be able to borrow again. And, you know, we would just wither. And so, you know, there were a lot of compelling reasons why you have to do what you have to do. But for me, the process was a long one that took a good part of a year. It involved a lot of stakeholders and constituents. We did a lot of education, a lot of planning for our board, a lot of education for our medical staff as much as that they wanted to get involved and to learn. And then, bless you, a lot of community meetings and meetings with politicians who always feel that this is their hospital. So,
Senator Menendez?
even Senator Menendez. Listen, you guys all know Senator Menendez. Come on. You know, he's just indicted.
That's an inside joke. This is the type of, I'm surprised he was indicted, but we had to deal with a lot of people who got indicted. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
But Bruce and I had lunch would say, you're not wearing a wire.
So I know this is going to sound weird to you since you're going off on stories, but can't tell you how many people, including politicians, have said to me, you've got to assume when you're meeting with somebody that they're wearing a wire. So, I mean, what kind of craziness is this? But Governor Christie put a bunch of politicians behind jail and a whole bunch from my community and county, a whole bunch. It was not an uncommon occurrence when you heard that the FBI was right up the hill. So anyway, it's a whole story. I know Congressman Menendez a long time, but on a positive note, Congressman Menendez just got us millions of dollars from FEMA for Hurricane Sandy, which
He was
I'm very
sensational
appreciative.
to all the hospitals.
Yeah. So in any event, you know, a very extensive educational process that you had to go through. You had to make sure that every constituent group was involved because you never knew where it was going to come from. We developed we made a decision in selecting our partners. We interviewed partners, and the board of the hospital ultimately made a decision to go with Hackensack. We decided to put our toe in the water with them rather than merge to develop a clinical affiliation where we set up certain services, breast surgery, vascular surgery, neonatal, and a couple of others that brought their physicians in. We began to integrate more of our medical staffs, develop referral networks back and forth, and then ultimately things were going on well. Our cultures seemed to suit one another, and we made the decision literally 2 months ago, the final decision on the definitive agreement to move forward with Hackensack on the merger. Well, the way we're merging with them is very different than the way other hospitals have done it. Very different than the North Shore LIJ model, very different than the New York Presby model. And I should also tell you, we were part of the New York Presbyterian system, I don't know how many years ago, when we broke that off, actually. And because it just didn't work for us. And New York Presby was not in the mind of developing a network at that point in time. But that actually was my first choice way back when. So in any event, the merger is going to involve our board remaining intact with certain powers, but the reserved powers are going to be up at the parent organization, which is the Hackensack University Health Network, who will have the right to appoint the board members. So it's very much a takeover. You do as I say, well, we're not going to appoint, pretty much. But we also have built into there a whole bunch of contingencies, such as the requirement for 10 years that our facility be maintained as an acute care hospital with the core services of med-surg, OB, peds, ER, all of that sort of stuff, and that our nursing home be maintained. The reason that that was most important is because we have some of the most valuable real estate you could ever imagine. My office overlooks the 79th Street Boat Basin and Manhattan. The value of that property to build some high rises is incredible. So our fear was that we were going to turn over the keys to somebody that was not necessarily in our community, and they were going to knock down the hospital and build condominiums, which would be such a bad idea. But nonetheless, that was our fear. To make sure that they followed through on what Hackensack was going to do in terms of the capital commitment, the clinical commitment, we set up a legacy board and funding it with $500,000. This legacy board will be appointed by our board and be there, if you will, almost like what an attorney general's office would be in a state, to enforce the laws and to enforce the decisions. This legacy board would have some local people on it whose responsibility would be to make sure that if Hackensack didn't do what they said that they were going to do, that they could come in and take them over and make sure that the community was continuing to be served. I started out by talking about.
You really believe this gives you all the Palisades, all the protection you think it gives you?
It gives us every protection you could ever get. But the answer is no, because the reality is the times change. And so I wouldn't want to hold the hands of Hackensack, let's say, if our pediatric volume began to really plummet and they want to decide to discontinue the pediatric service or the OB service, you know, that type of thing. Actually, like that.
But they're all going to one at a time. What are you going to do next?
I'm sorry?
If they all walk out one at a time, they'll come back.
I'll talk. So, in any event, there are no other protections you can really put in place other than what we were able to.
And I think that's an important point. Bruce's job to get the deal done, he won't say this I will, is to, he had to do a deal. And he did find the strongest partner in the state for him, for his hospital. Okay? But it is what it is. And things are moving so fast that no matter what you put on paper, the reality will overtake anything else. And since no one really knows what that reality is,
That's correct.
that was an honest answer. We did the best we can.
Right, and that's really what it is. Again, you know, we started out by talking about the Affordable Care Act, and you know, these laws are really what's pushing everything along the consolidation road, causing hospitals and health systems to develop these insurance products, since you were talking about North Shore LIJ.
A question about your acquisition of mergers in hospitals and hearing all these changes right now. Does management or board generally take the initial step to suggest the merger acquisition? Who does it?
So I think, you know, it depends on the organization. It comes from one to the other. Listen, the board provides oversight. Make sure that you're fulfilling your mission to the community. You know, overseeing the finances, the care, all that sort of stuff. But it's up to the management to educate the board about what's going on so that the decisions are educated decisions and proper decisions. So in my particular case,
Bruce led this.
I led it.
He coached his board.
Right.
We had lunch there, and I got chapter by chapter. But that's a hard job, coaching your board to give up autonomy. It's really got to be bad for them to say, "You're right, Bruce. We got to do this now." Right? They have local ownership of it.
I will tell you, I spent more time meeting and educating the board than I did anything. Because I mean, you can't walk into a boardroom and have a vote that has some dissenting opinions to it. You need to make sure you walk in there, you have the support. And so I was fortunate that I had a board chair who was from the banking industry, actually. And she recognized where the trends were going, what the environment was like. The whole role, you're New York Presby also, the whole role
Yes.
of consumerism in healthcare and where that was going. The issue of price. Anyone in here on the insurance side? So, yeah. Oh, okay. So you know where insurances are going. Everybody here, hopefully you're all employed and have health insurance through your employer. But if you have to go out and buy insurance and wind up with these high deductible plans, it's a lot of trouble. So the high deductible plans are going to force you to make choices. It's going to make you choose on the basis of convenience, price, and then maybe quality comes into it. So because of all of this, CVS's, Walmart's, and everybody are coming up with their own healthcare delivery models, hiring nurse practitioners, putting them in the corner, in the back where you have to walk through the aisles, and giving you free flu shots and giving you, $25 for a physical or something along those lines, and they make their money up on all the things that you purchase on the way to and from seeing that person. But as consumerism becomes a big issue, I also view that as one of the major drivers for me, because price becomes a very big issue. We could not compete with literally a CVS and a Walmart, a Walgreens are within 100 yards of our hospital. And I was really concerned that they would take the cream off the top in terms of our emergency room activity. And I knew we couldn't compete with them, so we tried to partner with them in a way. And so that worked out well. But in any event, this whole issue of consumerism, which we didn't talk about, what do I have? How much time do I have? Okay. Is something that we all need to be very aware of moving forward. Anything you want to know about a doctor, you can find out online. Anything you want to know. CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, last week issued a whole new rating system for hospitals. I don't know if anybody saw that or saw the news releases on it. I actually have something that came out in the New Jersey NJ.com today about their ratings to hospitals in the state of New Jersey. And it gives you 5 stars, right? We got 2 stars. Now, I want to tell you, if you took a look at this and you said, I'm not going to a 2-star hospital, that's crazy. But they're not, the rating is on stuff that isn't as important. It's kind of crazy. In New York, I think that there was only 1 hospital that got 5 stars. That was Northern Westchester. And in New Jersey, 0 hospitals received 5 stars. So it's a crazy kind of rating system. But in any event, this whole era of consumerism.
The weird part of that is CMS, and I said that to you, you'll see it when you get home. The CMS is actually rationalizing that they're looking at, these are all based on patient satisfaction, patient experience. We don't say patient satisfaction, patient experience, right? And not on quality, because they say, we really don't have those metrics down, but we know how to ask someone if they like their food. And then they put out a national report rating people basically on amenities.
Well, I mean, I don't think any of this stuff is helpful, quite frankly. I mean, yes, you want to go to a hospital that's clean. Yes, you want to go to a hospital that's quiet. Yes, you want to go to one that's safe. But who determines that?
it's metrics that it's so funny because they took metrics that were out last year and they compared against your peers. So you could be in the 88% top, you could be better than that, the national average, better than the state average, based on the way that the metrics combined. Your first year got 3-star. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
all over the place.
Right, so New York Presby gets 3 stars. Mayo Clinic gets 4 stars.
Right.
Northern Westchester gets 5 stars. Yeah.
Well, they
My
probably
good
deserve
friend,
5 stars.
my good
So-
friend is the CEO of Northern Westchester, and he's a great guy, and that is a great hospital. If you want to go there because it's cleaner and nicer and stuff, yeah. But, you know, you want to go to New York Presby if you have a disease that has a name to it or something. You know, I mean, that's where you would want to go for a lot of reasons. If you can have your patient gallbladder out, you might want to go there, but or have the baby there. But it's you can't rank these things. But consumers are making these decisions, and quite frankly, the federal government is paying us now on the basis of these ratings, on the basis of how we're performing. You know, my hospital was penalized by Medicare last year because we have a high readmission rate within 30 days. And for those of you that know what this is, again, the concept of taking care of a patient once they're discharged from the hospital. And we're not doing a good job. We were above the state average and above the national average, and we got penalized for it. But no one took into consideration the socioeconomic factors of the community that I serve, that my hospital serves. So it's really, you know, this whole era of, you know, availability of data, consumerism is really creating a lot of issues for organizations and really driving a lot of the decisions that we're making. So
Just don't forget to talk about, like you said, you should be reminded to talk about where the field is going early on.
professionally?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, just a couple of minutes about that, because again, you know, what I said is that I find that the whole world that is ahead of you guys is absolutely wonderful. And the whole dynamics of where employment opportunities exist, I think are going to be very different than what was for me. I actually feel that I'm somewhat of a dinosaur, so to speak, in the sense that I'm a local hospital CEO. I could have gone to a bigger place at various times in my career. Probably would have wound up in the same situation, but chose not to because I enjoy being a big fish in a small pond. That's just for me. But guys like me are going to know more. We're not going to be presidents and CEOs. We're going to be plant managers. We're going to be local administrator. We're not going to be in a position, I don't think, where we necessarily have to think strategically. We're going to be there to manage against certain metrics and to perform along those lines. The Dowlings of the world, the Steve Corwins of the world. Steve Corwin and I were good buddies at one time. Actually, we lived in St. Town as I lived there before he moved to Manhattan. These large hospital systems are going to have large corporate offices and going to be making the decisions affecting the local community hospitals. And it's no longer there's going to be management like myself at the local levels anymore. I think that the real opportunities out there now are on the physician practice integration side, or on the whole population health side, which I know what it is, but I still don't fully grasp it. And that's where I think that the thinking, if you will, strategic thinking, is going to be taking place. And that was really the point that I wanted to make.
So this is your opportunity to ask how you're going to navigate, how you're going to get there. Any questions? Got plenty of time.
do urgent care centers play a role in this new phenomenon?
Yeah, okay, so very important role. Again, it's all about access, availability, cost. And the urgent care centers are, if you will, an extension of physicians' offices alike. Whether they're pediatric urgent care centers or whether they're full-fledged 24-hour urgent care centers. This is an important feeder for the hospitals, an important part of the whole realm of the continuity, if you will, of care. I think it's important to be, if you're going to get your care from a physician or physician group, or that's associated with a particular hospital, will all be within that system. But it's really a very important part of what's going on. They have popped up like weeds all over the place.
Curious as to, I guess, in your experience in New Jersey, majority of your career, just to talk a little bit about being in New Jersey, always kind of near New York, and how that dynamic of major centers that have been here for a while, and consolidation going here, how that's just kind of directed or guided your own strategy over the years.
Okay, so really good question. So, my organization is in a county that is known for having overutilization, not the best trained physicians, a lot of foreign trained physicians compared to the rest of the state. And so quality and image was key. Back in the early 2000s, somewhere around there, just as a track of time, when we were in the midst of competing, and Jonathan was around at that time, I felt that we needed to differentiate ourselves from all the other hospitals in the county. What would make us special? And so that prompted us to develop an affiliation with the New York Presbyterian. Right? Because the big issue was that we had a lot of out-migration from Bergen and Hudson counties into New York City, and we needed to stop that. So I felt if we could relocate some of the services under the New York Presbyterian banner. At that time, the New York Presbyterian was they had just merged, so I don't know what year that was, but whatever year that was is when we did it. When the Presbyterian Hospital in the city of New York merged with New York Hospital, and they created New York Presbyterian. Medical schools, of course, remained separate. But my goal was to stop the out-migration into New York. I was not successful with that at all. So there was always a concern about the New Jersey residents being treated in New Jersey. And fortunately, some of the New Jersey hospitals started to do very well. They paid a lot of money to the top doctors and brought them in from New York into New Jersey and stopped it somewhat. But we're always in the shadows of New York, always.
The problem we had in Hudson County and
Bergen.
New Jersey, every hospital, is every patient who left Hudson County, either go to New York or Hackensack or Barnabas, never came back. And their family never came back either. So if a kid went to Hackensack, the mom and dad started using Hackensack too. And the people who left and never came back were the people who had commercial insurance. So that meant that more and more, the payer mix for all of us deteriorated more and more and more.
Right. There's a lot of growth around my hospital on the riverfront. As I said, we're literally sitting on the river. So they call this the Gold Coast of New Jersey. And it really began to develop between Jersey City and the GW Bridge. So my challenge of taking care of a community that was on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, was largely Hispanic. Serving those needs, developing menus around them, developing culture, employee workforce that spoke Spanish, to really take care of them culturally, spiritually, as well as their health. I now had to come up with a plan to get all of those people in the fancy condominiums, such as where Jonathan lives, to, you should see his apartment. Right? That's the $1 million.
I worked hard, Bruce.
You know where Jonathan lives? No. All right, you know Hoboken, right? Right on the water, overlooking New York, that's John. So, anyway, it's a little secret. So,
It is what it is.
So, you know, the key was to be able to attract these people in the county. We've not been successful. One of the strategies that we just implemented, and it took about 3 years or maybe 4 years to develop, was to develop a Class A office, clinical office building on our campus, because there was nothing like that along the riverfront. And so we literally just opened it in March. And the first program that we opened is the John Thor Cancer Institute at Palisades Medical Center. And that is the big cancer program out of Hackensack, which is the #1 cancer program in the state of New Jersey. So what that has done is that's enabled us to keep, number one, oncology was a new service for us. A whole host of admissions, outpatient revenue, testing, great opportunity for us.
And doctors come from Hackensack?
Yes, all of them, all of the oncology specialists from Hackensack, right? And so we're developing GYN breast, because we have a large OB program, and so we're attracting that community, plus all of the other specialty services in oncology. And that's an attempt to keep it.
What's your plan for establishing a physician culture that supports value-based, and what's your plan for those physicians who are completely opposed?
So this has been one of the hardest things for me to do. All right, and I'm not sure that I can say that we're successful at it at this point in time, because what you really need are strong physician leaders, and that's for me at least one of the more difficult things to find. So you've got the physicians 50 and over, 60 and over that are continuing to practice, and they are practicing in a whole different way than the younger. And so we're trying to develop a whole new group of younger physician leaders to develop and drive this charge. So it's taking a longer period of time than I would like. But my approach is to developing the younger physician leadership that are gradually taking over at the organization. So that's been my strategy. Plus, every physician that we hire and employ, and every physician group that we acquire, is now part of the Hackensack ACO. And so we are not able to, we do not have the infrastructure to be able to have these physicians pay attention to value-based reimbursement related issues. But the infrastructure that is at Hackensack is coming up. In fact, today I received a phone call from the head of the ACO, a physician, who was getting upset that one of our docs was the highest readmission doc in the whole in the whole network. I was thinking, this has been my world, right? So the whole process of educating them and bringing, my goal is these all these physician leaders, and I started in medicine, the ER, the anesthesia, some of the departments where I was able to control and bringing them on board, and that process is starting to work. But to me, that's where it's the physician leadership.
As you take on shared savings with like commercial payers and stuff like that, are you ready to give some people the boot? Are you willing to give some people the boot down the line?
Yes, without question. Everyone is being, the other thing we're doing now, which we never really did before, is we're sharing data, utilization data. So all of your clinical and utilization information, whether it's length of stay, the amount of tests that you ordered, the amount of consults you ordered, all that sort of stuff now, we can compare with you, and we're posting it. So getting it, it's causing a lot of tension, but this is what you have to do.
Open your blind.
Oh,
By name?
the physician's lunch. Yeah, and I'm actually interviewing new chief medical officers, and when you learn what they're doing in other hospitals, it's even more profound than what we're doing. So we don't have so many physicians in our employment model to be able to do as much as some of the other hospitals are doing. But
So as a CEO and this soon to be new part of this large organization, what are you looking for in young administrators to fill your senior positions to support that in this future system?
that's a good question. Well, number one, I'm not going to be the CEO of the large system. I'm not sure about it, but time will tell. But I think that Hackensack, for example, the CEO of Hackensack, who's a guy I've known for a long time, announced that he's going to be moving up into the corporate position. His successor, more likely than not, is going to be a physician. Right? So I see a lot of these positions moving more towards physicians who can identify and have a greater, be a better change agent in terms of the clinical practice. So I see that.
If you accurately describe, banks over the years have changed their footprint, so they've merged, they've become bigger and bigger. And I'm seeing that also with the hospitals. Do you think you'll ever see big national hospital networks where, and as Jeff Howe brought in the other day, they've got networks down in Florida and Sweden, and obviously all up and down Long Island. Do you ever see a massive network of hospitals like that where, they've just got this connection that the banking system has at this point in time?
Yeah, I think without question, more in the for-profit side than the non-profit side. So the for-profit side, obviously, we know those companies, and that they're moving west and they're moving north. So the answer is absolutely. On the nonprofit side, it hasn't been as prolific, but it is in fact developing now. Again, we were part of Hackensack, so I was in the room during the whole thought process in the formation of a company which is called Allspire. And it took the leading hospitals in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania to come together and to form a network where they're going to begin to integrate IT, purchasing best practices, pre-hospital transport, all of that sort of stuff, dealing with the whole population health side. So that's the beginning, as far as I'm concerned, at least in New Jersey, of developing networks that are going across lines. Geisinger Health in Pennsylvania, which is really in western Pennsylvania, acquired Atlantic Health System, or Atlantic City Medical Center, and so that's another, if you will, cross state lines organization that is developing that way. Some of the big names in cancer care, MD Anderson, are all developing satellites all over the place. That's a whole other way. But the larger hospital networks, I think on the nonprofit side, are going to be more difficult to develop across state lines. But as I think everybody becomes more sophisticated that way.
Do you know the reason for that difficulty? Sorry. The reason for that difficulty?
Well, because
I come from finance, so this is still.
yeah, I understand. I don't know. I think it's again as the future leaders come in, it will become easier. But if you're in a nonprofit frame of mind, your views are more towards your communities that you serve. You're going to be developing these insurance products that every hospital is developing now, and you're going to need to develop alliances in other states to make sure you have that network. But I just don't see the nonprofit side moving as much like that. Texas has
that sooner than later, one of the big not-for-profits is going to flip to a for-profit. It's going to be a whole new dynamic. When one of these systems, as Barnabas or North Shore or Geisinger says, oh, well, we can do it better. We can have more access to capital and bigger reach by giving up our tax exemptions and becoming a for-profit.
very much.
So I want to comment on something on career and ask you to pick up on. I've never quite understood the phenomenon of the last 5 or 7 years where hospital CEOs more and more are physicians. Originally, I thought, Bruce, it was because we were making more money than them. But what I see now, based on what Jeff Crowd said last week, where you work for North Shore Hospital, and cardiology is across the whole system and stuff. That administrators do that. But the point you made on changing the culture of quality and that physician leadership is a good chance that is a more effective way to do it. I think it's part of the real explanation why we're seeing more systems make their hospital CEOs picking the number of positions, because they can handle 20 cardiac cath labs, but they can't change the culture of physicians in 20 cardiac cath.
Right. And it's about credibility.
And I think the emergence of physicians, what are the implications for this group who many I assume, who wanted to be CEOs?
I'm sorry.
The implications for MBAs, who traditionally people like you who became CEOs. That's not going to be the fast track.
Well, that's right. Right. That was my point earlier on. That
I want you to pick up. So what would you do if you were in this cohort in your late 20s, early to mid 30s, early 40s? How would you be thinking strategically about your career?
Well, I mean, if you want to be in the hospital side of things, just make sure you're in the front office, because that to me is where all the action is going to take place, not on the local level, which is where I am and where all the action used to take place. So I would always be thinking about developing that niche, whether it's managing the product lines such as oncology, cardiology, orthopedics, that going across hospital lines, going across the whole industry, or in the area of population health and physician practice management is also a very key area. For me, looking at what's going on in the accountable care organizations, that is probably the fastest growing aspect of the business at this time, and there isn't a lot of talent in there. And I just think that there's great opportunities in all of those areas.